Any parent of young children is going to be able to tell you just how quickly you can amass an incredible amount of toys that barely even get played with. Between well-intentioned gifts from loving family members, toys from like fast food Happy Meals, or prizes from the local fair, the sheer amount of crappy plastic junk that can end up in your house when you have a small child is staggering, honestly. But unlike Instagram would like to have you believe, it is actually possible to have a minimal, clutter-free, and curated collection of toys that your children will love to play with without spending a boatload of money on it all the time. And I would know, because I've been in both situations. Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here and have never seen my face before, hi, my name is Sage. I am a stay-at-home mom to 2 toddlers, and I am on a mission to improve my life and subsequently improve the lives of my children. On this channel, I aim to share the simple yet effective changes that I'm making to improve my daily life, as well as the strategies and techniques that I use to be the absolute best mom that I can be so that you can follow along as well. If you end up enjoying this video, it would mean the absolute world to me if you would like, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell so that you can be among the first to know every time that I post a new video. And with that, let's get into it. So while it may seem like having a ton of toys will foster creativity and play in your children, it's actually been shown to do the opposite. Children tend to feel a sense of decision fatigue when they have a bunch of toys around, which leads to less play and lower quality play when they are actually choosing to play. And as a parent, it's also super frustrating because it seems like young children have just such a penchant for taking buckets and baskets of toys and simply throwing them across the floor without even actually playing with them. That level of clutter and mess can do a real number on your mental health, making it more difficult to show up as the calm and regulated parent that you want to be for your children. Lots of people are seeming to catch on to this concept, which is amazing, but the internet has taken it and ran with it and made it seem like if you want to avoid having a ton of kids' toy clutter, you have to invest in like incredibly expensive heirloom quality toys. And while I am not going to be the one to dog on high quality handmade craftsmanship made with natural materials, like those are some of my favorite words, okay? I am gonna sit here and say you do not need to be like one or the other. It doesn't have to be like Grimm's and Melee and like what are some of the other brands of like the really fancy kids toys that are like crazy expensive, or having like a huge collection of plastic beeping light up junk that isn't necessarily helping your children's development all that much and is quickly overstimulating both them and you. There is actually a middle ground that doesn't cost hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And I feel like our family has really found that sweet spot, so I would love to share that with you guys so that you can implement it too. One of the concepts that I think is super important when you are coming up with your own curated toy collection is the concept of going deep and not wide. What that means is that instead of buying a little bit of every category of toy there is, you pick a couple of categories and you really go all in on getting things from those categories. These categories are going to be very dependent on your children's age and interests. I'm going to go through my categories to give you a little bit of an idea what that can look like, but keep in mind that my children are 26 months old and 14 months old, so again, this is very dependent on them, their current ages, and their interests. Definitely don't need to go by these categories. I encourage you not to go by these categories. Like, pick your own based on what your kids like and where they are developmentally. So ours are dolls or stuffed animals for imaginative play. My 1-year-old really likes just like walking around with a doll, and my 2-year-old has really started to like get into the imaginative play part of it. She pushes her dollies around in her little shopping cart. She likes to pretend to change their diapers and get them dressed and feed them. At this age, like acting out concepts from their daily life is super helpful for them, so that is what that category is specifically for. Next up is play silks. As much as I would love to have a huge collection of Sarah's silks, I am just using old scarves for this. I pick them up at the thrift store. They work perfectly fine. These are great for using as like blankets for their animals and dolls, or as like things to carry things around in. They can like bunch the corners together and use them as a bag. You can tie them around them, use them as a cape. Like, there's all kinds of fun things that your kids can do with a singular like square of fabric. Again, imagination being open-ended here, very good. Next up is Little People and Playsets. That was one of my favorite categories to collect. My children absolutely adore their Little People. They get a lot of use in our household. For the fine motor aspect of it, we have magnetiles for them to be able to practice building and stacking things. Someday I'd like to get them blocks as well, but for right now, it's just the magnetiles. My son is still teething, so I keep a category of teethers here in our house. We have like a couple of different ones that he likes just for bringing in his new teeth. We have cars and vehicles. This slightly overlaps with the Little People because I have a couple of different cars that are specifically for the Little People. I also have a Little People camper, which is like one of my prized possessions. My daughter loves anything with wheels. She loves making things go, so this is a favorite category for her. We also have some puzzles and matching games, but these are specifically kept out of reach and they are only brought out one at a time by mom and dad to avoid like the overwhelm of having a bunch of little pieces everywhere. I feel like until your kids hit maybe like, I don't know, probably like 3.5 or 4, they're just not super interested in actually doing like a puzzle or matching game by themselves, and so they're just like throwing pieces everywhere, and that is overwhelming for them and us. I was finding that my 1-year-old was like tripping and falling a lot because they were just like throwing little like stacking discs and stuff all over the floor, and they were becoming a tripping hazard. So we pull them out one at a time, all do them together. That prevents just a huge mess and makes it a little bit more effective. We also have musical instruments, so we have a harmonica, we have like one of those little pianos like the Fisher-Price ones, we have a xylophone. Eventually I really want to get them like a little bongo drum set. And lastly, we have our animals. We are just starting to collect our animals. My dad actually just sent them a bunch of them, but we chose to go with the Schleich animals because they are so high quality. They are a little bit spendier than some of the animals that you could get at like Dollar General or whatever, but we had a couple of those and I was finding that they were getting the paint like chipping off, they were fading, they were like little parts of their legs were like breaking off and stuff. And so the ones that you get from Schleich, they are like super solid. This is not an ad, I just really love these animals. I had them when I was a kid and I just remember the longevity on them being amazing. The only time that I can remember one of them like breaking or not being in good shape was because I left them out and my dog started chewing on them. Not a whole lot of kids' toys that can stand up to a pit bull, okay? So yeah, the first thing that you want to do is decide on your categories. I'd say to go with a reasonable number of them. You don't need to feel like you need to have like 15 different categories or even 10. 5 or 6 is probably going to be enough for most families. That also depends on like the age span of your children. So if you have like an 8-year-old and you have a 1-year-old and you have children in between them, you're probably going to have more categories than a family like us who just has 2 toddlers, because there's a lot more ages and stages to accommodate within that family. And with those ages and stages comes different developmental needs and desires, so different categories are going to be needed. So now that you have decided on your categories, you can go about acquisition, which is the fun part, right? Personally, I like to prioritize buying secondhand, both for the like lowered cost aspect of it, but also for the lowered environmental impact. If I'm buying plastic, I would like to buy it secondhand so that it doesn't have as much of an environmental impact. And I think it's important to remember that there is no need for speed. Like, your kids, especially if they're young, they really don't need a ton of toys, and they don't need a ton of toys all at once. The novelty of having a new toy takes a while to wear off. So acquire your things slowly. You don't need them all at once. You can take several years to acquire your full toy collection. And I want to make a quick note on gifts here, because I like to say that gifts are a great way to acquire nicer toys if you have family members and loved ones who are willing to listen to what it is that you are actually hoping to get. So like I said, with my dad, I had told him that we were looking to start getting the Schleich animals, and he heard that and went and got some of the Schleich animals. Likewise, my mother-in-law was asking like, what is it that your kids want for Christmas? And I was able to tell her like, oh, at this point we are working on acquiring Little People and Little People play sets. I told her specifically that I was looking for older Little People play sets that don't have all like the fancy bells and whistles that need like batteries. So I know that she's also a thrifter, and so she was able to go out and go thrifting and find secondhand, like older Little People sets, which were very much beloved by my children. However, I feel like most of us can relate to having people who will purchase gifts that maybe are not your first choice for your kids. And I would like to encourage you, if it's not what you want in your house, you can donate it. You do not need to keep what they think that your child needs in your house. Something that has been like a solid boundary that I've held like since the time my daughter was born is that like we will not have any like electronic like toys for her. So I don't want to have toys that are like talking to her, flashing lights. Basically, if it needs charged or it needs a battery, it's probably not going to be in our house, with the exception of her Yodo, but that's kind of a different thing. I have made that clear to all of the family members who have gotten her gifts, and she has still received multiple gifts of things that require battery power to be flashing and beeping at her. That is not an arbitrary line that I drew just because like I felt like it. I feel like the research backs up that those kinds of toys are not helpful for kids' development. They might actually be harmful to kids' development. And so when someone gives us something that does not belong in our house, I simply say, oh, thank you, that's so nice. And after thanking them, we donate the toy, we get rid of it. That does not make you ungrateful, that does not make you like a bad person. It just means that you are holding firm on a boundary that you have set for your kid. I firmly believe that most parents, when they are setting boundaries like that, they aren't doing it just like for fun or for a power trip, which is what I've heard some people say. Parents are doing that because they believe it is what's best for their child. So never let anyone try to make you feel bad for doing what is right by your kid. Anyways, getting off my soapbox there, just again, if you have things that you are looking for, make sure to tell your children's loved ones prior to things like birthdays and Christmas. That way they can get them things that they actually need and will play with. Okay, so now you are acquiring the toys that fit nicely into your children's lives that they are enjoying playing with. Now what do we do about the toys that maybe aren't fitting into their life as well? This is where decluttering comes in. I am a big fan of decluttering ruthlessly. I try my best to declutter often. This is not something that comes naturally to me, but it is something that I am trying very hard to learn, especially with things that are sentimental, like sometimes kids' toys can be. It's difficult for me to let go of things, but I have learned to declutter mercilessly. And I'm finding that I feel so much more at peace in my house this way. I find that my children are more peaceful and happy. I know that like the whole Marie Kondo thing is kind of like cliche at this point, but if you are only surrounded by things that spark joy, you can't help but have joy be sparked. I think that when it comes to decluttering, it's really important to really pay attention to your children when they are playing. Figure out what things are actually being played with and what things are just being like ripped off the shelf and tossed aside. I think especially with young children, like paying attention to what it is that you're cleaning up is not going to be very helpful because, like I said earlier, kids just love ripping things off shelves, ripping them out of baskets, and throwing them across the floor without even playing with them. So if you're not like paying super close attention to what your children are actually playing with on a day-to-day basis, you might think that more of your toys are getting used than are actually getting used. And if something isn't getting used, I say toss it. Get rid of it. They don't need that taking up space in their physical space or in their brain. So now you've acquired the toys that your kids like, you have decluttered the ones that they don't, so now you need to like store them. I think that you can really get yourself worked up about like toy storage, or you can just like not. Our current system isn't my favorite. We literally just have a little bookshelf that we like stack the toys on, and like it works fine. But like I said, it's not my favorite. I am in the process of crocheting like little round teardrop shaped baskets that are like soft and collapsible. In our future home, I plan to put up hooks on the wall, and so every category will have its own bag. So like The Matchbox cars will go in one bag. The little people will go in another bag. The animals will go in another one. And so there will be like cute hooks on the wall, the cute little baskets. But I think something like a toy box would probably work great. There are other types of bookshelves that are like the ones that have like a grid, if you know what I'm talking about. Those would be great. You could keep each of those like cubby holes for one category. The last thing I want to talk about is toy rotation. There's a lot of talk about toy rotation, and for the longest time I felt like very overwhelmed by the idea. And we're not currently really rotating our kids' toys, but in the future, as their collections grow and stuff, I would like to start rotating out portions of each of those categories. So using the little people as an example, maybe I would get out like the farm playset and the cafe playset, and I would pick out like 4 or 5 little people to go with that, and that would be their little people category for like a fortnight. And then the next week I would switch out the playsets for like another playset and switch out the people for other people. That way they stay kind of fresh and exciting for your kids. Same thing with like the animals. Switch out like 5 or 6 different animals for a different 5 or 6 animals. I think that's a really good way of working with a toy rotation when you're also working with the deep not wide philosophy. I personally don't plan on rotating entire categories because I don't plan on having enough categories to do so. But if you have older kids who are maybe more interested in different types of toys and you have more categories, maybe you would find it nice to actually rotate the categories. Maybe you rotate the Nerf guns for Lincoln Logs or whatever it is that older kids play with. I'm not quite there yet. Obviously, every family is going to be different, and I think that there are lots of ways that you could make that work. But that is all that I have to say on the topic for today. I would love to hear more about you guys' systems for toys and what things your kids are enjoying playing with right now, or what categories of toys you would like to get for your kids and you could see them enjoying. I love reading you guys' comments, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to watch my videos. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you again next Friday.